Welcome to TAURUS TV. I'm Melissa Hoyer and thanks for joining me. Whether it be government, business or community groups, leaders are everywhere, but leadership is severely lacking. Being a great leader is so much harder than it actually looks. Well, for starters, it seems nobody ever sits you down and teaches you how to be a leader. I guess in our world, the lust for power has seen leaders emerge seeking their own agendas. Leadership, on the other hand, means giving of yourself and putting yourself last, sort of dropping the ego. I've got someone very special here today. Welcome, Janet Hunter, leader extraordinaire. Boy, leadership, do you feel as though it's something you were born with or you have just it's just emerged out of you throughout your career?
Yeah, it's a good question and something that you could ponder on for a long time. I guess for me, how I've always seen it is like anything in your career. If you focus on it, you can develop it and finesse it and refine it. And there's certainly lots of wonderful leadership programs that you can study, everything from Harvard through to your own sort of personal development opportunities. But I think for me the difference that makes the difference is not so much the learning of it, it's the application of it.
Yes.
Because I often see people who have, and CEOs and people in culture teams who have invested literally millions of dollars year on year on leadership and culture change programs. And maybe the pessimist in me would say maybe 5%, 10% actually apply what they've learned. So yes, it can be learned, but I think it's more in the case of, am I willing to apply what I've learned?
So is there a formula? Is there, a magic formula to becoming a good, successful leader? I mean, there's a lot of great business people out there, but that difference between being good in business and being able to, command a leadership position, how difficult is that?
Look, I think it's a very difficult thing to do well all the time. And I think people sometimes have an unrealistic expectation of the leader. They're people too, they're human too. They have their own habits, their own, mental models that they work with. But I think, putting that aside, in a corporate sense, it's about, for me, the definition of a good leader is somebody who can create the space for others to come in. So if I'm a good leader, I don't have to be out the front per se. I see my role as, if I've got a leadership team, are they able to contribute to the dialogue, or are they perhaps nervous about what they can say or they can't say? So for me, a good leader, when I watch a good leader really hitting their straps, it's when they can facilitate a dialogue where they get honesty and they get creativity coming into that conversation. To me, that's the magic that happens around what a good leader is. So I think that's a really important aspect that is often not really given much credit around leadership capability. And the other one is, the other measure that I put around leadership is, are they growing other good leaders? Is there a healthy garden, coming through their organisation? Of good, competent leaders. And I do think those two concepts are linked.
So do you look at someone perhaps in your current team and think, yeah, you've got it. You are a potential leader. Can you see it? Can you feel it?
Yeah, look, in my work, I have the privilege of being amongst, big cohorts of people working on strategy. And I think working on strategy is a great simulation for what happens, in real life or back at the ranch kind of thing. So we put them in a situation where they're workshopping difficult concepts, difficult decisions to be made, sometimes varying points of view that people have. So that's when you notice where people's interpersonal skills can come into play, where they can feel passionate about something but still be open to somebody else's point of view. So that's, for me, that's when the lights go on and I think, okay, there's a star in the making there.
Speaking of stars, Sharon Williams, 27 years you've had TAURUS marketing. You've built people, you've built brands, you have made so many companies incredibly successful and been on their journey, particularly Janet's journey. How has that been? And that relationship has been going for quite a few years between you two. What in your world makes a good leader? Because you are an example of a fantastic leader.
Oh gosh, Melissa, thank you. I think the biggest thing that has always resonated with Janet and I is that we build other people's success. And we're almost success makers at the top of the tree, and then whatever we do underneath. I do business and marketing strategy, and Janet, the chemistry with us was that she has a system and a process that allows you to implement that strategy all the way through to execution and be accountable.
So is there a process of going from leader down to your entire staff? Is there a sort of a simplistic process that leaders use, or I guess it varies from leader to leader?
I think with TAURUS over the last 27 years, we've had a formula, and it's a very specific formula, and we've rolled it out, and people either fit in with that formula or they don't. And not everybody is cut out to be what you're trying to build. And the idea is to bring out the best versions of self. Mm-hmm. And sometimes it's almost creating clarity that leadership is not for someone, mm-hmm. And then being comfortable with that, because we can't all be leaders. So yes, at TAURUS it's very formulaic, although it's personalized.
Yes. Have there been some people who maybe have wanted to work with you, and you've actually thought, oh, you know what, you just haven't got that sort of leadership sort of in you?
Absolutely. And my job as a leader of my company is to ensure that those people and those clients, potential clients who are not a great fit, never get into this business. Mm-hmm. And actually, sales and recruitment is about ensuring that those people don't come in and have a negative experience, yes, because this isn't the right place for them. And that works on for clients and for team members.
Janet, would you agree with that? That sort of leadership, I guess, it's, as a leader, you have to demonstrate leadership, but is it difficult sometimes with some people who maybe want to be leaders, but they're not going to quite get there?
Yeah, look, it's a tough thing to have to go through sometimes, that process that Sharon spoke about. But what I love about how Sharon spoke about that is it's real courage. And at the end of the day, if it's your business or you're the CEO of a business, then you do need to be able to apply some courage to your decisions. People talk about values and it gets thrown around a lot, mm-hmm. but for me, a value is only a value when it's tested and you show up in that value. Otherwise, yes, it's pretty hollow. So I think protecting your culture of your business by thinking of it as, well, who do I want in and who do I not want in, is a really important distinction, because I often see people get trapped as a CEO, get kind of stuck in a situation where they hold on to people who they know in their heart might be toxic, they might not be good people leaders, they might not even be good performers, but for some reason they hold on to them for too long. And I see the effect of what happens when people don't apply the kind of courage that Sharon's talking about.
And it is hard now too, because if you do have a staff member, and I think this would be with you as well, Sharon, that isn't quite fitting into the culture, it's very hard to sort of get rid of people without, going through, due process. So, when you are sort of employing people, it has to be a very, very serious decision.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And that's where I'm a big fan of giving people the opportunity to shine. Yep. And I talk about, my work, I think it's a wonderful way to put people through a process and see how they are in their natural state. Mm-hmm. It's one thing to show up in an interview. It's another thing, how do you operate under pressure? Because that's when we go to our default. And that's where you kind of really see the raw material of somebody and whether or not they're going to fit in an organisation. And you do have to be strategic about how you go about, moving people out. You can't just be like, just left a Genghis Khan and, put a blade through the whole organisation. I'm not suggesting that, but I do think you need to be conscious of how you move people in and out. You can't expose your business to risk by just unplugging people abruptly. But I think in your heart when somebody needs to move out, and you can start the process of those conversations with that person. And often they kind of know they're not a good fit too. It doesn't have to be a brutal experience. It can be a respectful, mutual experience.
Learning experience that they've had.
Yeah. But I'm not underestimating how difficult it is, but I also know what happens when you don't do it.
Yes.
I've seen that.
So when it comes to leadership, Sharon, are there, when you think of sort of maybe the 3 top tips to leadership, what would they be in the Sharon Williams Taurus world?
My mother taught me that I had 2 ears and 1 mouth, and to use them in that order. I'm still learning that one. We even had a joke about that today, didn't we, Janet? So listen rather than speak. Allow people to come up with the solution. So the best words are, what do you think the solution is? What do you think you should do about this when you're brought issues as a leader? And I've got 3 words on my laptop, which when I wake up every morning and I start work, they're there: enthuse, inspire, motivate. So when you're firing off emails or you're firing off a communication, it's a really good checklist. Will this communication, because unfortunately we work so much by email and text these days, will this communication inspire, enthuse, motivate? And often I can stop and trigger what I've just written and go, I can just change a few words there and I know I'll get back a really positive reaction. Whereas without editing it, I might have been seen to be a slightly different approach.
And that is as a thing, because we are doing so much more of our business purely via, whether it's even either a text or an email. So you lose that personality. How do you go about that? I mean, I know when I often have done an email or I look back, I think, oh no, the tone wasn't right. I didn't mean it to sound like that. So do you actually always go back and read again before you fire it off?
I do.
If you have time, yeah.
No, I do. Particularly if it's an important one.
Yeah.
I do. My own mental trick, which I've learnt this the hard way, is to not put the person's name in until you're ready to send it.
Clever. Yes, I've done that as well.
We've all had clangers.
Yes. Yeah.
So but I think Sharon's right. Is get your mental model right. Because whatever your intention is, it will flow through. If your intention is to have a crack at someone, doesn't matter how you window dress it, that's going to come through.
Exactly. It'll be a crack.
That's right. That's
and
right.
it's okay to have a crack at someone.
Well,
I think we've got so soft these days that you actually are almost scared to say something. It's very difficult to offboard somebody these days for an employer. In fact, almost impossible. And so, an employment contract is a contract to deliver against a contract. So I, in true sort of Taurus fashion, if you need to have a crack, have a crack.
Yes, yeah.
And sometimes people need to hear that it's not acceptable.
Exactly. I think that is such an important point, because we have become, so conscious of not saying we don't want to say the wrong thing, but it's not necessarily the wrong thing. It's just, you need to be strong as leaders, as both of you. You have to say to a staff member in a nice way, but still in a very strong way, no, you did not follow that brief.
I need more from you.
Yes, yeah.
And the other thing is for I don't know about you, but I've not worked out at jobs on numerous occasions before I founded my own business. So you may not have the right fit in one's company at the moment, but that person can go on and be a superstar somewhere else.
Yes.
So I know I failed miserably in my early career, and I would have been, I took it as failure, but I wasn't the right fit. And just because I failed at those jobs didn't mean that I couldn't be successful somewhere else.
That's right. Yeah.
So actually offboarding someone is a very gracious and important time, and we learn, of course, much more from our failures and our hardships than we do from the successes.
That's right, because when people keep saying, oh, you're fabulous, you're great, the ego starts rising. But I think it is actually great for all of us at some times throughout our career to not succeed and to realise that, no, that wasn't quite built.
No, and your team need to be able to say that to you. I love the fact that my team feel open to be able to say, hey, that, you know, that might not have landed well, or you might need to double check that. Because as a leader, you're learning, you're in school. You're never the best leader. You're always every day learning. And at the end of the day, we're just human. And what was great about Janet's framework and her software was that it taught me, when I was looking at business and my own business and my clients' businesses, was that most strategy is done on butcher's paper, Excel spreadsheets and PowerPoints, and they get filed away.
That's it, they get filed away.
So how is that then implemented when you've got an organization of 150 people plus at management level? So that top tree is not one, or it's 150 in that waterfall. How do you get 150 people able, plus big brands like AMP Control, AMP Control, Origin, to then execute strategy all the way down to the bottom of the hierarchy? And her software allows you to do that, and it just blew me away when I first saw it.
Wow. You're good, Janet, you're very good. But do you think, though, with leadership, though, and what you have created, you know, with your business, is it a science or is it an art? I mean, what do you think leadership is?
I was, you know, reflecting on that question, you know, recently, because I often in my work refer to it as a science and an art. And I think a lot of the amazing artists over time have been great engineers as well as artists. So I feel quite comfortable that they can and need to come together. I think often strategy is considered to be a bit more of an art, and leadership is considered to be a bit more of an art, which is much more individualistic and kind of up to the flair or the talent of the individual. And there's a real flaw in that model. If you're going to have a sustainable, successful organisation year on year, it needs to have some scaffold and some greater degree of depth in that talent and capability. So the way we go about our work is, you know, the art, if you like, is the design and the passion that comes through in where are we taking this organisation, what are our opportunities, you know, how do we win against competitors? That's the fun, the art piece. The science piece for me is how do I methodically break that down to make sure that it resonates for my management population, that everybody knows where they fit and also where they have to work together to get stuff done. You know, I can't do it, you can't do it, but together we can, that kind of mindset. And for me, you know, the traditional models that people use around a hodgepodge of, you know, desktop publishing tools and maybe a spreadsheet over here and, you know, whatever. The software that I've developed captures the strategy and structures it in such a way that it will roll down or cascade down and then roll back up. And you've got complete governance and oversight of all of that accountability framework, that accountability map.
Yes.
That then becomes how you track execution. You then can assign KPIs to people around some topics that people might think, how would you apply a KPI to strategy leadership? And we've codified that. I can tell you whether or not a leader is showing up in the strategy effectively.
So when we sort of unpack your framework and your software application, I mean, I'm sure there were CEOs out there thinking, oh, what can I learn from Janet? Because, you know, what you have created is extraordinary. Yeah, what is it about your software that makes you particularly proud?
I guess for me, I created the business because I was a CEO, and I, through a range of circumstances, you know, was in a very difficult situation, a very turbulent time around the board and shareholders, and I had the thumb screws really applied on performance of the business that I was leading. And my mind went to, well, what's the culture of the organisation and how effectively are we executing our plan? So in terms of, you know, for my business, I really sit in the CEO's shoes.
Yep.
I can really see it through their lens. I know what it's like to be running a business and looking to access the full talent and the full capability of, you know, several hundred of your leadership team. You know, that's the sort of thing that can take your breath away sometimes, but being able to have the confidence that you can go about this in a methodical way that you can get some transparency onto otherwise murky water.
Yes.
That gave me tremendous confidence. So that's the mindset that I bring. Is I feel like I can, honestly look at the world through their eyes and help them through that lens.
And Sharon, obviously, you having worked with Janet for so long, you're on the same wavelength, I can just tell. And that relationship, no doubt, will just continue. How good is it working with Janet?
Oh, it's a joy. I mean, we become friends, haven't we? And isn't that the joy when work is not work?
Yes.
It's the whole life is blended. So I've always loved and adored Janet and what she does for business. So it's a great combination.
Well, Sharon Williams, Janet Hunter, thank you both very much. I'm Melissa Hoyer.